Hey guys, it's Mike. We're going to get started in a few minutes. Just sit back and relax. Let me just run through the tests and I'll be right with you. So if you've attended these before, you know I always go through an audio and a screen share test just to make sure everybody could see and hear. And there's a Q&A panel that you have. I always ask you to put in a quick note that you could hear me and see my screen. Greatly appreciate that if you would do that now. So right now I'm hitting share on my screen, and the audience view panel, the media panel should update. Now, another thing you guys should see or might not see is that there is a poll that has also been added. Now that poll could be hidden behind one of the panels. So you might need to slide those out of the way, and you'll see a poll that is asking a question: how can augmented intelligence help my organization? And it's a multiple choice. So if you guys want to answer that now, we usually start a few minutes after the hour just to allow for some latecomers. So let me check the Q&A. Okay, I see more people joining. So once again, guys, we're just going through some quick tests. Appreciate that. I got some responses coming in. Thank you very much, Stephen. Appreciate that greatly. For those of you who might have a problem during the session, just simply refresh your browser. We've had a couple of issues with the host broadcasting service that we use. Pretty much sometimes it comes down to network issue or a bandwidth issue, but just refresh your browser and sometimes that'll solve that issue. So once again, for those that are just joining, there is a poll that is on the screen. You should see it. If you do not see the poll, it will be probably behind a media player or a panel. And just simply drag that panel out of the way, and you can answer those questions and click submit if you'd like. And we'll review the results a little bit later as we go through the presentation. So this is session 8. If you're new to the Do More series, we basically run them every other Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And I pretty much cover a topic that is either current with our release schedule or a user request. Sometimes I'll have a special guest on, could be a Qlik employee, product manager, consultant, a Qlik marketing colleague. It could also be one of our valued partners or even a Qlik community member. We have a new web address that we can share finally with everybody. I'm just going to share it on my screen here. Let me just verify it. It should be Do More with, I'm going to put capital letters. I'll do a case like that. Do More with Qlik at qlik.com. So any type of communications that you want to send, that would be the best way to reach myself and my colleagues that handle this program. And I would prefer you do not send questions directly or technical questions. Please use the Qlik Community for that. But if you know me by now, I'm more than happy to help answer some questions as well. And we'll do a little Q&A as well. These are very informal sessions that we hold, really made to make you aware of what's going on at Qlik and the areas of interest that I've been working on, as well as the particular products and release schedules that we're delivering. And for this one, for example, we're going to be covering augmented intelligence capabilities that have been released with our September release. Yes, okay, and I just verified the email. It's Do More with Qlik at qlik.com. Okay, so it's about 3 minutes after the hour, so we're going to get started. Let me just refresh, make sure everybody's with us. Very good. Okay, let me go through the initial introduction before I kick off the main presentation. So I just briefly discussed about the Do More with Qlik series and when we run them. Our education department does want me to make you aware of a promotion. There's a 50% off virtual instructor-led classes happening now at learning.qlik.com, and you'll see a link for classroom training. You could use the promo code ILT50 promo. And what I usually do here is I just put in a question and I answer to everybody, and you'll have that promo code in the inbox of that, and you can use that if necessary. So just send that along right now. Send to all. Okay, so if you look in your Q&A panel, you'll see a promo code ILT50 promo. You can use that for signing up for our virtual instructor-led class and receive 50% off that. On the last session that we had, we covered Qlik data transfer. Now, all of these sessions are archived, and you will get emails bringing you to that archive to review these on demand at a later date. It usually takes about less than a week to get the recorded sessions up online, and you'll have an email going to that archive, and you can view previous sessions as well. So we covered Qlik data transfer, allowing me to take data from our on-premise sources and upload them to our QlikSense SaaS environment for analysis. Pretty detailed demonstration, was orchestrated beautifully, I might add. That's because there were a lot of moving parts that I needed to cover in that one. So if you want to view that at a later date, just please see the archive link. I believe the archive link should also be available as a resource in one of the panels that are also in the window that you're viewing. If that's not the case, just let me know and I'll get it out to you. So today's session is covering augmented intelligence capabilities. I have a couple slide presentation. I normally don't do slideware, but I figured for this one, it was good to really set a foundation. What does it mean when we talk about augmented intelligence? Okay, and what does it mean, or what are the components that make up augmented intelligence within the QlikSense platform, and how augmented intelligence could help you do more in your organization? And the things I'm going to show you have been released with the September 2020 release, and they're just going to continually get better and better and better with each release. And stuff that I've worked on just today for today's presentation kind of blew my socks off as well. So it was really fun to prepare for this one. So I'm looking forward to demonstrating that to you. Okay, and on our next session, I'm going to have special guest, Principal Analytics Platform Architect from Qlik, and my friend, Dan Pilla. He's basically going to be talking about App Analyzer. For those of you who are not familiar, App Analyzer for QlikSense SaaS is based off of a previous version of App Analyzer for our Windows metadata analyzer, basically allowing you to look at many different statistics on the system that's been running, including app optimization, anomaly detection, data modeling, standardization, and best practices. So this session is going to be geared on showing you how you can get the free App Analyzer app, have it installed on your SaaS tenant, and then configure it to basically read the tenant statistics and the logs that are being pulled in from the SaaS environment, and then produce these meaningful results that you can analyze. So that's going to be happening on October 1st. So please join me and Dan then to cover App Analyzer. We already discussed the Q&A panel. You have something similar to this. I'll answer questions either during the presentation or at the end. It all depends on where I am and if the question is relevant or not. So please use this, and also take note of the resource link for many other resources, self-help sites and documents that can help answer additional questions. And finally, ways to get in touch. I didn't update that email. Here, if you reply to the registration email, instead of it going to me directly like it used to, it will go to the Do More Qlik Registration email inbox, where myself and colleagues will look at that. So please use that. You also can follow us on the Qlik Community and on Twitter and other social outlets as well. Okay. That's all I wanted to do for that. So today, let's get into the main part of the topic. So I'm going to kick off with a brief, it's about 7 slides, and I have some narratives prepared for that, to set the stage. And then we're going to go into the rest using live demonstration of the product. And I always got to swap presenter view. Okay, so you should see my slide in the presenter view. And if Windows will cooperate. Okay, and we can go back and forth. Okay, cool. All right, so I wanted to kick this off with, why do we call it augmented intelligence, right? When people hear the term AI, they think of artificial intelligence, right? It's machines, and machines working with sophisticated algorithms and data literacy techniques, and basically producing recommendations and results. But there is a huge component that is made to these decision-making processes, and that's people. Okay, so mixing those two together. So think of most business problems, they can't be solved purely by algorithms or machine learning. They require some sort of human interaction. And Qlik, has always believed in empowering people and maximizing their potential. And we leverage AI to work in combination with this human-centric analysis. And that's what AI is. That's what AI means to us. Augmented intelligence, basically helping people uncover the insights that accelerate their business value. Now, our goal is to make people smarter and more literate using this machine intelligence, but we're not restricting them to machine learning algorithms and predefined, dictated processes. Data science is great, and AI offers statistically derived patterns and correlations and outliers and predictions, and basically prompts a user to go in a new direction. But people can still anticipate and explore these ideas with their own intuition, their own knowledge and context that the machine simply doesn't have. Okay, so it's the combination of the human-centric, human interaction, and the augmented intelligence, the machine learning, the sophisticated algorithms. That's what augmented intelligence is to Qlik. Now, there's different users, okay? And this is important because the users are also going to use different tools, right? I'm leading up to the different types of, enhanced AI capabilities that we have in the product. So users of all types in the organization, they're faced with limitations from, second generation tools and query tools, Excel, for example. And augmented analytics helps people, finally break free from these. Think of a business user that has struggles with accessing the tools they need, or they lack the data literacy skills, or they even lack the desire to create visualizations or even navigate dashboards. Okay, and that is typical, with many organizations, depending on the roles of the individual, how long they've been there, what tools they're using, how sophisticated they are using these tools, who they have to contact to get answers. Right? They can spend 80% of their time trying to get data, creating visualizations, and basically have little time left to analyze. And I forgot to shut off my Ring doorbell notification. So basically, what does this mean that they're spending this time? Is they're missing opportunities to really make an impact in their organization. And then think of a data scientist. They build these powerful models and generate important perspective, but then they lack the ability to be able to put it in the hands of the decision makers in a usable way, right? So we got to combine all that. And this is where the augmented intelligence comes in, and what we're calling the third generation of analytics. Now, if it's done right, we can allow these organizations and they can see the true value of their data. So where does the associative difference come in? Okay, so you need to understand this because this is a big part of it, because what we do is we provide the associative difference, which I've done a do more on, and we've talked to this to the death. And there's so many materials on this that you can review. But basically, the associative difference is providing you with insight into the data elements that are unrelated to other elements, helps prompts new questions. There's a bunch of other factors that go along with the associative difference, right? You can see all your data, explore without boundaries, speed of thought. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because we combine the associative difference with the cognitive engine, or the augmented intelligence capabilities. So we run on this unique engine, and it's been powering our products for the last 20 years. Okay, so this is nothing new. It's our core competency when it comes to providing visual analytics. It's already been proven as game-changing technology. It's patented. Think of it as providing what we call the peripheral vision, right? You can see the information in front of you, but with associative difference, you also see additional information to the side, if you want to just use that as an analogy, right? Allowing users basically to freely explore their data without limited or tunnel vision that's offered by query-based tools. Now, this benefits the users, but it also is benefiting our augmented intelligence capabilities because it allows it to understand context and relationships, and it then gives you a complete picture to the user. So that's where now we combine the associative engine with our new cognitive engine, which we released, I believe, last year at the time when we started adding these machine learning algorithms that look at your data and start to understand your data. So we offer this unique technology advantage, delivering this augmented intelligence built into our platform. This is not a bolt-on approach. Okay, this is not an add-on. This is built into the core, our foundational level. And we support this human exploration with the associative engine, and then combine it with the cognitive engine, adding the AI and machine learning capabilities that enhance the ability for the people to uncover these insights and interact with. And basically what you have is a broad set of powerful context-aware, you're going to hear me use the word context awareness every now and then, augmented analytics capabilities. Okay, and now it's delivered in a few ways. Okay, so conversational analytics, right? Giving people faster and easier way to ask questions and get insights and make data-driven decisions using natural language, speaking to people, retaining information, retaining parts of the conversation, applying that context as you go. Basically, it allows them to interact in a natural manner through natural language. And at the same time, we wanted to boost adoption and unlock the power of data analytics for less sophisticated users, right? Think of the users who maybe don't want to use a dashboard, but they can bring up a mobile device and start asking questions about their data and get those insights. So we have what's called Insight Advisor Chat. Okay, and you're going to see that today. So this is a fully conversational, natural language interaction experience. It is multi-language. I forget exactly how many languages it is available in at the moment, but I can always get you that information. It uses natural language processing to understand your intent, and then basically also generates observations and uses natural language generation to create narratives on your findings, and then delivering insight and perspective for basically a deeper understanding of your question. And you're going to see that today as I have kind of like a prepared path that I'm going to go down for that part of the demonstration. Okay, then there's accelerated creation and data preparation, all right? So you have to create visualizations and use a traditional build process when you create your dashboards, but you can do this with the assistance of augmented intelligence. And we do this by what's called the Insight Advisor. And the Insight Advisor basically allows users and helps users create, modify, and personalize visualizations based on their skill levels. So sorry, one second. My throat started getting dry for a minute, apologize. So Insight Advisor accelerates this automation process through using suggestions and recommendations based on what it's learned, based on the data that is reviewed. In other words, your data values or the quantitative data sets, the master items or the measures and the dimensions. And there's some data preparation capabilities and authoring functions that are in there that basically help it learn over time as you start to create visualizations. You can take advantage of the measures and the dimensions contained in these governed libraries, and then basically it still runs on our associative engine. So all of this information is still linked together automatically. Okay, so that's one of the things regarding augmented intelligence and accelerated creation, data preparation. It helps with the suggestions, and you'll see some of that as well. Okay, another one is search-based visual analysis. This is not just keyword searching. Okay, this is very similar to taking the conversational analytic experience and then adding additional guided helper techniques, type ahead, data value lookups. So as you're asking your question, it's also guiding and validating what you're looking for, and you can choose and select that. Okay, and then it also produces the charts based off of the augmented intelligence capabilities, and it makes suggestions of those charts, and then you can further add those to your dashboard or answer additional questions. Okay, so this is basically going to hit new insights, and it basically amplifies discovery by allowing you to start asking additional questions as you apply these filters. So this is not just about creating the chart object based off your question. It's also about once you perform your selections and your analysis, you could ask additional questions in that context and get additional answers. Okay, this is completely context aware, and keeping in mind it works in conjunction with our associative engine and incorporates the user selection state and the auto generation of the visuals. Okay, this is I know this sounds weird, but this is one of my favorite things that came out of the September 2020 release, and it has nothing to do with fancy visualizations, fancy colors. It has to do with making the Insight Advisor smarter, and it's called business logic. Okay, and this basically is a layer. Think of it as a logical layer that creates business rules, or you create the business. Actually, it auto-defines these, and you can edit them, or you can create them from scratch. And it produces metadata and customizes the behavior of Insight Advisor's generated insights. Okay, and it helps the interaction with users become a little bit more seamless. Okay, just a simple example. If you have cost of sales, okay, and you have a suggestion that comes up and it shows you the summary of cost of sales, don't you think a better metric would be average cost of sales? Again, it all depends on the use case, but you can just tailor the aggregation, for example, in business logic to say, anytime a suggestion is made on a chart for a particular measure, such as cost of goods sold, make that average. Now, of course, the user can change it to sum or whatever other aggregation they want, but the suggestion that we're putting in the recommendation is we're training that engine to be smarter. Okay, and this is where business logic comes in. And there's more than just that. That was just a simple aggregation specification. Okay, and then we can customize this, and there's going to be newer options coming to this, such as vocabulary rules and synonyms, so you can have natural interaction. So for example, if we have a cost, or maybe somebody else calls it an expense. Well, what are my expenses today? Well, somebody might say, what are my costs today? You can create a synonym, for example. Currently, that is done today within our script, but there's going to be a UI for that, and you'll see an example of that as well. Okay, so the bottom line, full range of experiences that handle augmented intelligence capabilities, and you're going to see some of that today. All right, now, being that these are informal type sessions, like I've mentioned, I always, imagine if we were on stage or I'm in a classroom, I prompt you for any questions. So if you have any questions right now that you'd like to ask based off of what I just presented, please let me know, and I'll address them appropriately. The other thing I did want to mention is, again, I noticed a lot more people joined on during the part of the presentation. There is a poll. Please answer that poll. And I kind of gave you all the answers, if you would, during the presentation, but if you haven't answered that poll, please do. Okay, now then comes the fun part. So let's go into the hub. Okay, and for those of you asking, a lot of the capabilities I'm going to show you, I'm working on the SaaS-based version, but these capabilities are also going to be made available, or some of these capabilities are also going to be made available into the Windows version as well, okay, such as the Insight Advisor chat, which is what we're going to start off with. So let's go to my space here, where I have a prepared example that just took some mocked up data, fictitious eBay expenses, and the traditional approach for uncovering analysis might be to look at beautiful data visualizations, right? We have our KPIs looking at last year's cost versus this year's cost. The dollar change, right? We went up 85% over last year. The number of items that were purchased in 2020 versus the number of items that were purchased in 2019, 77% increase. We have a moving average of the number of cost going up, and a trend line, and looking at information over time, right? All this, again, as we mentioned, is completely interactive as well, with the associative experience. But I'm not performing any selections here. Right now, we're just looking at various metrics. We have a Marketo plot here, and a chart, if you will, basically, which shows me a greater percentage. This basically shows me all the different vendors that are here. And you can easily see where the expenses lie out and the percentage of these expenses. Most of them are in parts. Very easy to see this versus, let's say, other visualizations. Okay, this month's cost, $677, et cetera. Okay, so this is your traditional dashboard used to look at visualizations. But did you know we can get the same information through the use of our new Ask Insight Advisor? Okay, so we're going to start off with Insight Advisor Chat. And you can see this is available in the SaaS Hub, and this will also be available for what we call our Windows Client Managed, which is AKA the Windows Enterprise version. We click Ask Insight Advisor, and basically you're greeted. You have some buttons here that'll show you immediate apps, measures, dimensions, and help context. If I click on the apps button, you can see that there have been 2 apps that have been enabled. In this case here, we have an app here that I might have added in my personal space. So for argument's sake, I'm going to go to my personal space. This must have been a test app I was working on. Just to show you how easy it is to enable an app for chat or disable an app for chat, you just go into your settings and you can turn the switch on, enable insights for chat in the hub. Okay, in this case, I'm turning it off because I don't want it to be there. And then at this point here, I'm just going to go into the data load editor and just reload it, because from what I'm told when you make that switch, in order to refresh the Insight Advisor, the app has to be reloaded. Okay, and it usually takes a few minutes for the app to disappear from the Insight Advisor chat. But that's just to give you a quick example. Any app that you have can be enabled. And once it's enabled, it's basically looking at your data model. It's looking at your master items, and it's inferring and making decisions based off of what are measures, what are dimensions, what are classified as locations, what are classified as calendars, and it's creating a logical model under the covers. And you're going to see that a little bit later. But that's what's allowing me to start asking these questions. So I'm going to go back into Insight Advisor. Now, in this case here, you can see as I choose the apps, the other app is gone now. Okay, so again, to show you how simple that is. Now, technically speaking, you should not have to even select an app prior to asking questions. The product is smart enough to know what your measures, dimensions, or the type of questions are being asked, and it can tell you what app it's in. It's just I ran into a little bit of a problem today, so I have to click the app to initiate it. I haven't figured out what it is yet. It could be a bug or something I did wrong. So I'm going to click on the eBay Business Expenses app. Okay, by doing that, it's now scanning and looking at what's available. We have data model, measures and dimensions, and master items. And these can also be included or removed from the chat experience. Okay, in this case here, I have dollar change, expenses, item change, and quantity. Now you could just click any of these if you want to, but it's more fun just to ask some questions. And it's even more fun to use a microphone. Let's see if I can get my microphone to work here. How many items did I buy? Okay, so the number of items are being processed, and this is the entire data set. So the count of item is 200. Okay. How many items did I buy this year? So the count of item is 124, where the date range is between the 1st of January and December 31st. That's interesting. Show me the top 5 vendors I purchased from this year. So now we're adding more context, okay? So at this point, it knows that we're looking at item count, but now we're adding the context of a new dimension, vendors, and the time period this year. So top 5 now also is now producing a top 5 chart. So you'll get charts returned back to you. You'll get narratives returned back to you. Keep in mind also, you see there's some validation going on here. This is feedback that is saying, okay, this is what you asked for. This is what I understood. And these are the fields that are related to. So you could always kind of validate that particular information. So now looking at this chart, I can see the top vendor by count of item was Amazon with the item count of 59, where the date range was between the 1st and December of January. Well, that wants me to ask a new question. So how much were my expenses for Amazon this year? So what I did now is changed the measure. Okay, so we went from item counts based off of my analysis of trying to understand the number of items that were sold and where they were sold, or where they were purchased from was Amazon. Now we could see spent 2,000 or 2.31K, where that date range. So now I'm curious about the expenses for Amazon this month. So what we're going to do here, notice that also shows where vendor is Amazon. We're providing that filter context. Show me expenses by type from Amazon. Because now what I'm interested in is I want to know what were those items that totaled, that particular amount. So now I get a chart, okay? In this case here, I needed to say, let's see, show me expenses by type. So I can just actually push up on my arrow and I can type in this year. I want that particular time period. Okay, and there is our 2.3 thousand. Expenses is 2.3 for that date range. The top type expenses were parts, which is 38.1% of total. There were 68.43 of expenses not associated to type, which is this here. So in other words, I have some nulls or blanks in my data. Okay, but now I'm introduced that parts from Amazon totaled 878. Okay, so now I can elaborate on this a little bit further. Show me expenses by type from Amazon this month. So now we're reducing it to this month's time period. And now we can see that expenses is $127 between that date range. The top by expenses was supply, which was 53.8%. Okay, so at this point here, I can still continue my analysis with different types of questions. Show me item by type equipment. Okay, so now we have an item list where type is equipment. Show me expenses by item where type is equipment and vendor is Amazon this month. Now you can see the level of complexity that you can get with your type of questions. Okay, and we can see there was a phone charger purchased for $13.89. I don't even remember purchasing that, to be honest with you. So I want to explore this a little further, and this is going to now lead us into the next part of the demonstration, which we talked about visual-based search. You can go into this app directly, okay? And you can always validate where you are, by the way, by looking at currently analyzing app. If you want to clear your filters and start over, you just click that. But you can click explore this further. And what it's going to do now is fill in your visual search analysis and not only provide you with that answer, but also provide you with other visualizations. Now, in this case here, we've basically applied a lot of filters, right? Equipment is vendor. Here's your Amazon filter applied type. All right, so we can clear this and start over, but you can start asking additional questions at this point. Okay, so now we're actually in the app, and what we're going to talk about now is the visual-based search and the accelerated creation, and that's when we talk about that, then we're going to go into business logic. So here, I'm just going to clear my results. Now, we added the microphone here, too. Show me expenses. Show me expenses this year. Okay, so you have that same capability, but watch what happens if I start typing. We have this ability to do auto data lookup and type ahead to help you or guide you to select the appropriate fields or data values. And when we talked about business logic, this is important because you can control what information is displayed and looked up as well. Okay, do you really have to say, show me? No, you don't. I could just say sales. There is no sales. Because I'm thinking of my old data set. I can just click cost. That's the other beauty of this. You don't always have to type in everything. You could also perform selections by simply selecting fields and watching your charts generate. And any of these charts could actually be added to your sheets. Okay, so when it comes to visual-based search, this also works for example, applying selections. So for example, here, if I'm just going to say, show me sales for sales. I'm so used to talk about being trained. I got two microphones here. Show me expenses where type is parts for vendor Amazon. Okay, so now we have our particular chart here. Okay, I could always add this to my sheet. And I'm going to add it to a new sheet. And then I could jump into that sheet. And then I could start tailoring my dashboard. When we talked about chart suggestions and accelerated creation, you have the ability to jump into insights at any time. Okay, so if you just want additional insights, you want to look at type and cost, and then add to your sheet, you can do that. You more than happy to do that. But you could also do this directly within your sheets in edit mode and just start dragging and dropping your fields. right? So if I wanted to see expenses for those particular, with those filters applied, by the way, okay, what you can do, by the way, I just wanted to show you what it applies under the covers. For those who are familiar with set analysis, I've taught that topic a number of times. You can see it's applying those filters as set analysis type filters within the measure. Okay, so you could actually, change that if you want, but I could do something as copy, paste, grab vendor. Oops, I got to turn on my chart suggestions. Turn on chart suggestions. Grab vendor. And now you can see vendor is Amazon. I'm just going to take out the vendor Amazon in here. Now we have our bar chart. Okay, so in that case here, I selected a different item. If I wanted to, could just take item, for example, and replace our vendor. And now we can see all the items that are available. If I wanted to go back, just hit your back button or the undo button. Now we're back at the Amazon vendor, grab my item, place vendor, and now I'm looking at all the items that were sold in Amazon. So accelerated creation has to do with using chart suggestions with simple drag and drop. And then at the same time, you'll have this little this auto chart tab where it'll analyze and make other suggestions. Do you want a distribution plot? Do you want a pie chart? Do you want a tree map? Do you want a map? Basically not all of these might not make sense. It all depends on your data, of course. But in this particular example here, you have other suggestions. Now, if I take this information, for example, we're looking at cost. If we also throw quantity into the mix here, notice that now it converted my bar chart to a scatter plot because we're comparing two measures, expenses and quantity. Okay, so that's where the machine learning, that's where the sophisticated algorithm, data literacy techniques come in by automatically producing the right chart. Okay, so let's say now you want to make Insight Advisor smarter. Okay, and that's where business logic comes in. So in order to do this example, we're going to start new because you can see it from scratch how it works. So we're going to add a new app, and we're going to call this one called Game Inventory. Called V6 because I'm not sure how many times I've done that. So we'll put it into the retro gaming space, and then we're going to add some data. And the nice part about this example is you get to see it happening in real world, right? You have brand new app, brand new data set. I'm going to bring in some data here. I got an Excel file here. Okay, let's just take an idea, take a moment to see what this data is about. We have an ID field, we have a title, we have a platform. So we have a bunch of dimensions, who, what, where, and when. And then we do have a date field, and we also have a measure in here, I think, for purchase price. So we're just going to add that. Okay, this is going to show you exactly how business logic works in a very simplistic approach. Okay, now check this out. What we're going to do is I'm going to open up a new tab. I'm going to take that app. We're going to do a split screen. And the reason we do a split screen is because you're going to see how business logic and how it drives the actual user interface. Okay, so this is the same app that is loaded. It's just in two different browsers. By the way, we have a huge thunderstorm overhead, so if something happens with the network or I lose power, I apologize, and I'll have to see you on the next one. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're in this new sheet, right? We can go into edit mode, and you can see here, I can go into insights and see this list. This list is now being auto-generated based off of the business logic model it's creating. It's classifying the country field as geographical. It's classifying delivery date as a calendar. It's got other measures and dimensions here. And we can start asking, various questions here. How many titles? Okay, 696 game titles. How many titles this year? Okay, so 556 titles, etc. Okay, so same thing that I showed you, but you saw how it automatically worked based off that classification. But if you want things to be smarter, so for example, we have something here called critic rating. So let's look at critic rating. Critic rating basically is a range of numeric values from 1 to 10. Now, at this case here, this might be considered a dimension if you want to put it like within a bar chart and say how many titles were basically fall into this critic rating. But let's say if I wanted to see what the average critic rating was, or I wanted to tailor that to give me the average critic rating. Well, I'd have to manually do that, but the idea here is to make it smarter when we're using the suggestions. So let's go into our business logical model. Okay, and you can see the business logic currently in use is generated by QlikSense. Press continue to preview and make edits to the model. So here's the model itself, and this is all of the classifications, fields, metadata that it's discovered. Okay, and one of the things that I need you guys to understand when you look at this, when you see me go through this, this is not a semantic layer. This is not a metadata layer, data dictionary used for self-service, because you're going to hear terms like measures and dimensions, and you're going to see me starting to drag and drop, and you might get confused thinking that this is like our master items library. It is not. This is a tool that is used to make Insight Advisor produce more relevant, more significant results. Okay, that's the simplest way. The simplest way is to say makes an Insight Advisor smarter. So this is just an overview. Think of it as a dashboard of your data model, of the logical data model, if you will. We can jump into it, and you can see what it did. It kind of created these groups and kind of inserted a bunch of fields into that. We're going to change all that. There's something called packages, hierarchies, and behaviors. I'm going to show you some of these in a little bit. Still haven't really figured out the hierarchies just yet. But I promise to get back to you on that one. But the nice part about this split screen is you're going to see exactly what's happening under the covers when I start clearing up my business model and build it, or start editing it, if you will. But for this example here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete and ungroup all of this information. Now notice when I ungrouped it, all my fields and measures went away. So asking questions would be completely meaningless now because it doesn't know anything. So let's create a group. So this group here, I'm going to call location, and this is going to be of type dimension. And this is going to include my city and my country, as well as my store and my state. Okay, so right now we're creating this logical grouping of dimensions in a group name called location. Notice what happened. This popped up on the left. Now we have city, country, state, and store. Notice country is of type country. Okay, just to give you a quick example here, we're going to talk about some of these particular fields and the different properties that you could set to these fields. Okay, very simple one such as visibility, we'll touch in a minute. So let's do another one, and let's call this one game, and this will be of type dimension. And we want the condition, what type of controls it uses, the rating, the developer, the format, the genre, if there's a label on it, the platform, and the title and the type. Okay, so we create that logical grouping, and now we have all of those available for our Insight Advisor. Let's create another group here, and we'll call this one metrics. This is going to be of type measures, and we're going to classify these quantity and purchase price. I'll throw ID in there just for argument's sake. And the last group we're going to create is time. Oh, crap. Sorry about that. I just fat-fingered something on my keyboard. Time. And this is going to be of type calendar. And we're going to include delivery date. So now we have this neat logical grouping of these different fields or fields that have attributes that it makes it easier for managing. Now, notice you have ID here. Do you really want ID inside here? Probably not. So first of all, you don't even have to include it, but there's an option to turn it off. So we make hidden. So in other words, you might want to include a calculation, but you want it seen within this list. So now notice that was hidden. Now, if I go back to visible, just for those of you who missed it, see ID is back. Hidden, ID is gone. Remember when we talked about user rating? Our user rating, or I'm sorry, the critic rating, it says type dimension. So when I click on critic rating, it shows me a table. Well, let's take critic rating. Let's make it of type measure. And let's make the default aggregation average. Okay, I'm told I got to kind of switch back and forth just to kind of initiate those changes. Now watch what happens when I click critic rating. It created a KPI, right? Key performance index, keeping track of your metrics. My average critic rating is 5.5. Now, granted, yes, could you have made that by choosing critic rating and making an average critic rating and classifying it as a measure in your chart? Yeah, you could have done that. But my point is again, making Insight Advisors smarter. And that is a simplistic way of showing you, forcing that aggregation, okay? So on top of this, we have data value lookup. That's another thing I want to show you, right? So we're just focusing on what these properties do. That comes into play when you are using type ahead feature, okay? So watch what I'm going to do here. I happen to know that a game title is Orange. It's a game called Orange Box. And I also know that there's a city called Orange City in Florida. As I type in Orange, you see the data values popping up, shows you the title, the name of the game title, and shows you the city. Well, at this point here, maybe through overhead or I don't know, the reasons for turning them on and off may vary per use case. But Orange City, I don't want to do a value lookup. So I'm going to choose that to no. I'm going to switch back and forth. So now as I'm typing ahead, show me titles, blah, 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 or orange, notice that it did not show Orange City anymore. So you can control the lookup state for your type ahead within the visual-based search. Okay, so that pretty much covers, oh, actually I didn't show you classification. Perfect example of classification. We have country. I click on country. It's going to show me by default a table, but it also shows me a chart in a geographical, like a choropleth or a polygon map. So if I turn this off and just strictly make this a particular dimension, for example, make country and city dimensions, and we go back, and let's say I'm looking for purchase price by country. Notice how I don't have any geographical map because it's not classified as a geography. Okay, so once again, you can control that with the classification attribute that you have available here. So you have measure, Boolean, date, timestamp, year, week, quarter, month, blah, blah, blah. Email, that's pretty cool. Address, country, state, province, geopoint, geographical, postal code, longitude. So somebody would ask, what's the difference between geopoint, geopolygon? That's going to be if it's actual coordinates. And the geographical, that I don't know. It might be one of those particular region codes, for example. Percentage, monetary, ordinal, and temporal. Okay, so in this case here, we can just put it back as country. Switch back and forth. Show me purchase price by country. And now we should have our geographical map. There it is, and there's our geographical map. Oh, and there's purchase price. Didn't realize I fat fingered that. Okay, so that is a pretty detailed, and I would say an oversimplification, though, of seeing the power of business logic. Now, there's going to be a vocabulary piece in here for synonyms. So this is going to continue to grow, these capabilities. Now, we can talk about packages. Packages are groups of collections of groups. So basically, after you create a group, you can create a package, and then not too sure exactly how packages work just yet. A lot of this stuff is optional. But I can show you an example of behaviors. Then we also have hierarchies, and hierarchies basically allow you to find drill down relationships. I've tried to play around with this a little bit, and I haven't gotten it to work in a sense where it makes sense for demonstration, and I'm still trying to tailor that. So stay tuned to the stuff that I do so you can actually see how that works. But this particular next one, behaviors, this is really cool. So behaviors allows you to force a group, for example, in this case, our measures, to produce results based off of what you define in the behavior type. So in other words, do you want a selection to always be forced when you perform that search on that particular metric? Do you want a preferred relationship? In other words, what dimensions do you want displayed with your metric, right? So right now I have the location dimension, right? My country, my city, my state. So I'm going to select preferred relationship and click create. Okay, so what this means now is when I start to do a search, let me just clear these out here, clear my results. So when I do a search for purchase price, in this case here, again, let me just switch back and forth. So if I select purchase price, hopefully you guys are still with me. Little network lights just flickered over here for like a half a second. The beauty of working in the cloud and on a live network connection. I'm going to assume you're still with me because I could see my screen still updating. It must have just had a quick flash, so I guess you guys are good. Okay, so we're at preferred relationship. If I select purchase price, watch the dimensions that come back. Country, country, state. Now, delivery date's still going to come back, but you can see by country, okay, and we have some delivery date in there. But you can see it's using the preferred relationship to automatically produce these results by country. Let's go in here and let's edit. And instead of location, you remember I created a group called game, which had titles and platforms and stuff like that? We're going to apply that one now. Switch back and forth. Now, again, I'm switching back and forth just to kind of like refresh the model. Watch what happens when I choose purchase price. Now remember, purchase price is in my metrics group. Condition. We have one for country. By label. This one's by platform and by country. So you see what's happening here? The preferred relationship is now changing the scope of using the different dimensions to auto produce those results. Now, you could also say deny relationship as well. So instead of prefer relationship, we can create a behavior, and we can call this one for all the metrics. We can say deny relationship. So in other words, don't use those dimensions. And thank you for those responding, saying that you could hear me. I appreciate that. And then there's also called required selection, which is another one of my favorites. You can force it to only choose a single value for that particular measure, or you can use whatever multiple. But in other words, I'm going to choose, in other words, when I do a query or question on purchase price, you always need to apply this particular country or this field or this store or this state condition. So in this condition, for example, we have loose or new. So in this case, I always want the metrics to come back with all the prices for those that are defined as loose. In other words, they don't have a box, they don't have a label, they don't have a booklet. So now we have a behavior set up for that metric. So now I search for purchase price, and you can see it automatically says filter loose. Now I can go up here and say, well, I want to look at the new ones, but I'm only allowed to choose one for my analysis. And at that point, that's where we're done with business logic. I mean, you guys just got a crash course on the whole business logic interface in like 45 minutes. Well, I'm sorry, you did the whole augmented intelligence suite, if you will, in 45 minutes. But business logic, I think that took like, what, 10, 15 minutes? I still would like to find out more about packages and hierarchies to see how these work. I was told that it helps create drill down relationships. So for example, if I select game and location, let's call this one product H. When we do a search, for example, such as, just say purchase price. See if we do what we, so we include country, include purchase price. And then we're also going to do another metric such as quantity. It's supposed to basically the results that it produces, like this case here, it's a cluster chart. I wonder if there's something to do with the clustering of this or not. I'm not too sure of this, but I will find out for the future. So that being said, guys, that is the presentation for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed preparing for it, and I got to be honest with you, I was a little concerned that I was going to have some hiccups, but I think it kind of went off pretty well. If there was anything that was confusing or needs clarification, please let me know. This recording will be available for playback on the archive page that you will get. And at this time, basically, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, by the way, while you guys are doing that, let me see what the results are. So this was a trick question. So let me push these results to the audience. All of these should be 100. I can't move this thing out of the way. That I do not like on 24. I'm trying to view the, okay, so here is the poll results. Okay, so in this case here, you have identifying outliers, 52%, by suggesting insights, simplifying interaction, creation, BI, bringing more users. So basically, all of these bars should all be 100%. Whoever answered them, if all of you answered all the same checkboxes, all of them would say 100% across the board, depending on if this provides, unless it uses the percentage of people who don't answer as well, I'm not too sure. But basically, how can augmented intelligence help your organization? By identifying outliers, suggesting insights, simplifying interaction, accelerating creation, and bringing BI to more users. Okay, I got some comments or questions coming in. Let me see here. Let's see. There's a big question. I got to expand the window here. Okay, I want to summarize this question, and this is a very good question. So you guys know, or you should know, that we have a data integration space competency that we are also in right now, due with the acquisition of Attunity, which is now the Replicate products, and then the other product, Qlik Data Catalyst, as well, which is now in Qlik Data Catalog, right? So if you go to qlik.com and go to our data integration core competency, you'll see that. So there's a product called Qlik Data Catalog that basically, think of it as just as a marketplace for all of your data. Just imagine huge silos of data all over your organization, files, web files, cloud files, applications, S3 buckets, HDFS, Hadoop, big data, et cetera. You need to ingest it. You need to look at it. You need to see what's dirty, what's quality, what's being used, what's not being used, all that stuff. We have a tool that does that. That's called Qlik Data Catalog. The question that I got is basically, how would this inside our chat or the tool interact with Qlik Data Catalog? And the question for that, the answer to that is, it's just another data source. There is, and I don't know if it's been added to SaaS, but you need to inquire with your Qlik rep. There is a connector that, and I'm multitasking here, so forgive me. There is a connector that will allow you to connect the Qlik Data Catalog and basically ingest those data packages that you were suggesting that get put into the cart and then published. They can access those packages just like it's another data source. Now, for Insight Advisor, it'll just be another data source. I don't think this has been added to SaaS just yet. It might be only on. That would be interesting if we had it. Let's see. So right now I'm adding data. It's SurveyMonkey, Teradata, Twitter, Strava, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, normally I think there's a link here somewhere on the side, I think in the Windows product, that says Qlik Data Catalog. Now, I don't know if it's an add-on or not, but the long story short for this is that you can connect to the Qlik Data Catalog with this particular connector. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but we have connectors on that screen, but then there's also connections that are hidden away in here. Eventually, all of these connections are also going to be part of that screen. I think they're just taking their sweet time adding it as individual icons. Yeah, I don't see the Qlik Data Catalog connector in here. I'll have to inquire. So that's a great question for do more with Qlik at qlik.com as well. I could follow up. A comment. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mark. That's a good question. Who do you think will be using business logic? What type of user? Okay, so the developer or the person who's responsible for the power user for creating the analytics has access to the tool. It's under prepare and it's under logical model. And it's not entirely difficult to understand the model. So I would say the power users, those who are actually developing those visualizations, can go in here and tailor this because they know already what aggregations are, they know what hierarchies are, they know what classifications are, for example. So I would imagine those type of users, but possibly also somebody responsible to developing the data model too might want to play with it or you'd be able to use it. I got to take a drink, guys. I'm losing my voice. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Okay. So with respect to time, so today is one of my lucky days. I don't have a hard stop. So I can continue going. If there's something, take this as an opportunity. If there's something else you would like to see or ask, can't guarantee you 100% that I'll have the answer, but I always know where to get the answer. You could ask it now. If not, I'll give you back the rest of your day, and I'd like to bid you a farewell and have a good weekend. And then hopefully I'll see you on October 1st for the App Analyzer presentation with my special guest, Dan Pilla. So for those of you who would like to jump off, farewell and thanks again. For those of you who want to stay, I'll wait to see if there's any other questions. If I don't see any within the next 30 seconds or so, we'll disconnect and end the session. So once again, thanks again, guys. All right. Very good, guys. Take care and hope to see you on the next one.